Hey, welcome to Reviews and Book Tips with Rachael. Keep tuned in for reviews on clean romances I've read and for the most part enjoyed. First up, When Love Comes My Way by Laurie Copeland, published by Harvest House Publishers. Just a note here, Copeland's writing is top notch, professionally edited, engaging, and with a lack of errors I see in some indie books, such as overuse of annoying similes, repetition, things not being realistic or adding up. You won't get this in Laurie Copeland's books. If you're an author tuning in, or you might try your hand at writing a novel one day, this is the sort of writing you should aim for. This book is based on a lumberjack's town in the 1880s in Michigan, United States. This was when life was hard and men had to be extra courageous. Jake Big Say Lanigan is foreman of Wakefield Timber and is in charge of the timber camp. He rues the day that Rutherford Wakefield was foolish enough to leave his vast logging empire in the hands of his granddaughter, Tess. Jake receives the news that Tess is going to sell the timber yard, and to make matters worse, Tess is going to sell to Seven Templeton, the most ruthless competitor in the timber industry who has a disregard for the forest. Tess is planning to visit the timber town to sign papers and arrange the sale. At the same time, a new school teacher is due to arrive at the timber camp after a string of failed teachers who just couldn't handle the kids. It turns out both these women travel by train and the last stretch to the timber yard on the same wagon. The two women get into a conversation as they ride to the camp. Suddenly, one of the wagon wheels comes off the wagon and there is a serious accident, plunging everyone into an icy cold river. The driver and one of two women on the wagon are the only ones known to have survived, and the others are unaccounted for. The woman who survives wakes up, not sure who she is, and can't remember why she was travelling to the camp. Yes, this is another amnesia accident plot, but it still works. She assumes she is the new school teacher. She is not wearing an engagement ring, and Tess Wakefield was engaged. Jake suspects pretty soon that this woman is actually Tess Wakefield, but he can't understand why she's not wearing an engagement ring. It is clear to the readers, though, that Tess is the surviving woman, but Jake wavers between both realities. As you can imagine, this complicates the romance that soon develops between Jake and Tess. Of course, if she is Tess Wakefield and not the new schoolteacher, that's pretty bad as far as Jake is concerned, because she's an upstart of a woman who wants to sell the business to that ruthless competitor. However, Jake soon notices that whoever this woman really is, she's actually beautiful and also a great schoolteacher. And yes, Tess is engaged to another man. Jake knows that, so he puts the brakes on. All this and the fact that Tess doesn't really know who she is adds angst and tension to the romance. Tess has to rough it at first and initially finds it a bit of a struggle. But when she eventually settles in, she wonders why she really feels at home in the timber village. She can't remember that she actually spent a lot of her childhood there with her grandfather. She makes friends with a woman married to one of the timber workers, which adds an interesting angle and touch to the story further on, when something extremely interesting, which I won't give away, happens with this woman to tie up loose ends at the end of the novel. You'll have to read it to find out just what. This book is also full of the drama you would expect in a late 1800s timber yard, with all sorts of misadventures and so on happening, as well as community celebrations and the experience of tight-knit community that has to be this way because it's so isolated. Copeland develops all the personalities and characters in this novel superbly. This romance was not straightforward at all, and there were a lot of ups and downs, almost to the point where I became exasperated at times and lost hope almost, although at the end of the stories, they always end up together. But how that happens was quite unique. There was a piece in the middle, however, where they were doing a lot of community things, which I found a bit boring after some of the other events which had happened earlier in the story. So that was a bit of a slow spot for me. However, all in all, this was an excellent clean romance, especially if you like ones with a historical context and also with a Christian theme. I would probably give it 4.5 stars out of 5. Love Blooms in Winter, The Dakota Diaries, Book 1, also by Laurie Copeland. This historical Christian romance novel is based in Rachael, North Dakota in 1892. May has been courting a solicitor for 6 years, and he is supposed to be proposing any day, but the swanky town boy hasn't got round to it. May lives with her younger brother Jeremy after they were orphaned. May is also busy looking out for her elderly neighbour Pauline, who lives alone and is starting to show signs of aging and dementia. She's trying to track down a relative of Pauline's to see if somebody can help out by providing funds or looking after Pauline in her old age. Meanwhile, Tom of the Chicago and Northwestern Railway receives a letter from May, who has found something in Pauline's house which indicates that he may be one of her long-lost relatives. So Tom comes to Dweldlow to sort out the situation with his long-lost relative, although he's not 100% sure he is related to the lady. So Tom and May end up falling in love, which is probably obvious, but this is the problem. Tom needs to leave and go back to his job in the city. And then there is the other issue of Jake, who by this stage has become May's fiance and is getting a little bit annoyed with Tom. But May's having doubts about whether she really wants to be married to Jake, and if he's the right sort of person to have for her and her brother, Jeremy. Because Jeremy's a little bit simple and needs someone's understanding touch and someone who can help him become a man. Tom seems to be this person, and Jake doesn't. Tom and May fall in love without actually admitting it, both trying to hold back because of these complications. Tom has to leave. May is engaged to someone else. There's also drama around the railroad and winter chill, which means Tom has to stay on in the village in town because he gets snowed in and the trains can't run. There is an interesting large elephant in the story as well. As with all clean Christian romances, it all ends up happily in the end, but you'll have to read the book Journey with them to find out, and journey with them and find out yourself how they get there. I would probably give this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And one thing I really like about Laurie's books is the discussion questions from a spiritual point of view at the end of her stories, which adds an extra dimension to the reading. I also like that each of the characters include their Christian faith in their decision making along the way, which is really good to see. I've also read book 2 in the Dakota Diaries series. This is called Under the Summer Sky. After a man named Jones rescues Trinity Franklin from a river, they find their destination is the same, a small town in North Dakota. You'll meet some of the same characters in book 1 as the story intertwines, and you'll be frustrated as the pair initially dislike and irritate each other, but delighted when they eventually turn full circle and fall in love by the end of the book. Of course, there are things stopping them admitting this and keeping your heart on tender strings. Another great book from Copeland. Now onto a secular historical romance, The Widow's Christmas Promise by Eva Lindale. This is a delightful story about second chances. I like the fact that this is a clean romance with a real community vibe. The love interests are both likable, noble characters, and the writing was engaging with a good balance between dialogue, description, and action. I didn't quite understand why it was inappropriate for a widow of 3 years to be courting. Isn't that long enough to be grieving and mourning? It wasn't specified in the story just how long was acceptable in that time period. The term sweet boy was overused, and there was a revelation to do with Mrs. Green that was repeated, which those are a couple of negatives. I wonder whether it was partly AI written. I enjoy this author's books as long as she can edit the AI out and take notice of reviews. I've read several other novels by her, which I will review below. I give this one 4 stars. So here we go with more reviews of clean, mostly historical novels by Eva Lindale. This one's called Whispers in the Ballroom. I really enjoyed this old England style novel, which sought to break down class and gender barriers through an impossible romance. Take out the overused cliche simile, hit like a physical blow, used 4 times I think, a bit of repetition and a few inconsistencies. This would be an A+ book. I couldn't put it down and was hooked by the intriguing duke and lowly merchant's daughter, who was secretly a writer, which was a real scandal in those days, and published in the newspaper. And I was captivated by the emotional turmoil and their thoughts about their struggles and impossible romance. There were a lot of twisted turns, so this is more than just a romance. If you want drama, emotion, and to explore the breaking down of conventions of society, then this is a book for you. 4 stars. Shadows of the Manor. I enjoyed this book overall. This is also by Eva Lindau. It is exciting, intriguing, and filled with twists and turns. However, it is not a 5-star read due to inconsistencies, repetition, unrealistic scenes, and once again use of overused and annoying similes. I was also a bit disappointed that more was not made of the gothic ghost theme hinted at in the book description. I also cringed reading some of the dialogue from Edward. Men are just not like that. They are not generally emotional, open, and willing to let a woman boss them around. I guess that is what makes women love romances. They aren't the real world. The book felt a bit forced by the end, but lovers of fast-paced, clean, historical romances, including scandals and propriety, will love this one. 4 stars. This next novel is also by Eva Lindau. It's not clean as there is a sex scene, but this is necessary for the plot line and not pornographic. When Lavender Blooms Again will be an enjoyable historical romance for those who like that genre. However, I found it predictable and the plot unoriginal and in places unrealistic. I was also annoyed by many inconsistencies or things that did not make sense. This could be from use of AI without adequate editing, or maybe lazy editing. The writing was descriptive and of a reasonable standard, except for inappropriate or overused similes found in many texts today, unfortunately. This has potential, this book, but needs fine-tuning. However, readers who do not care about the things I've just mentioned would find it very engaging. But because of the factors in the novel which need to be improved, I would rate it 3 stars. This might be her first novel. It's the earliest one I have read. Later ones, as reviewed above, have less errors, in my opinion. Well, thanks for tuning in to Reviews and Book Tips with Rachel. Be sure to subscribe and like below and watch out for more reviews and tips.